Hello there folks, right, here's something I said I would do yesterday in the comment section to a couple of people that had commented on a video I've recently done on Mason Greenwood. Now, I've done 5 or 6 videos regarding Mason over the last, say, 2, maybe even 3 months now. And on each occasion I've really been in his corner and batting for him to get returned to the Manchester United squad. Now, many people would not agree with me. I get that, and I get the reasons why. Many people that support United wouldn't agree with me. There's certainly many people of other teams that definitely wouldn't agree with me. Most ladies that visit this channel wouldn't agree with me. But there's something I'd like to do, and I'd love everybody to go into this video message with an open mind and listen to what I've got to say, and then maybe make up your mind further down the line and see if your opinion changes at all. Now, it's going to be a longish video. It's going to be sort of probably 10 or 12 minutes. Did a video 3 days ago on Mason. And it'd been up for a day or two and got 20, 30, maybe 40 views, and then took off yesterday to an extent. When I say took off, just to give you some ideas on the figures, it had 970 views. Might not seem a lot, 970, but I'm a small channel, or relatively small, just over 1,000 subscribers. I think I've got about 1,070, so 970 out of 1,070 isn't bad. I know it's not all my subscribers watched it. It'll be other people that just tripped across it on YouTube. But still, for 1,070 subscribers, 970 views is pretty decent. It lasted a good 5 minutes long. The average view was only a minute and a half. I appreciate that. That's no problem at all. It got about 8 thumbs up. It got 1 thumbs down. And it had 33 comments. That, is a lot for me. Because I don't do these live videos that people do. And I don't do these videos where I walk around with the camera in Benidorm and Tenerife and places like that get loads and loads and loads of views and loads of comments back and to, and where people comment with one another. But I got lots of comments by my standards yesterday, and many of them were positive, which surprised me. I mean, it really surprised me. So I'm hoping with this that United fans watch it and maybe have an opinion based on what they had before, and maybe tell me what they think when I've done what I'm going to do. But I'm also hoping fans of other clubs that think Greenwood should be banished to other countries or never play football again, I'm hoping that some of them listen to what I've got to say and see if their opinion changes ever so slightly. Because this piece I read about 2-3 months ago now, I mean, really changed my mind on the whole subject. It really, really did. So to that end, I'm going to read you the piece in a moment. Now, it'll take 5 or 6 minutes to read because it's a long piece. Many of you won't have read it before or heard it before. And I said yesterday I was going to read it and just give people an idea of what took my mind to where it is at this stage. My reading isn't great. I'll make some mistakes, so please forgive them. I'm not going to re-record. I don't do that on here. It may be a little boring listening to someone read out for a newspaper, but I think it's worth the listen. Had somebody have done this for me and I not read it, I'd have liked to have heard it. Now, I've read things before and I've had my head down and you've seen the thatch going thin and whatever else, and there's nothing worse than that. So I'm going to read it like this. So really most of the time I'm going to be looking away from the camera, which isn't ideal because there's no interaction there. But I hope you'll forgive it and understand why I'm doing it. But I'll read it to you, and then I've got a couple of comments to pass on the back of what I'm going to read. And then I'd like yourselves to think about it and then come back to me. Now, this is on the back of us hearing over the last few days, since Greenwood's performances have gone up a notch each time he's played, and since that, well, it looked like a wonder goal on Saturday night, Saturday just gone. We've seen a few probably even better than it since, by his old club and some other clubs in Europe, but it was a fantastic goal. We now hear other Premier League teams are having a look at him, and there's every chance he'll be back in the Premier League. And I did this video 2 or 3 days ago on hearing that, and I thought, look, if he's going to come back into the Premier League, it's got to be for us. How can we let him go to a competitor? Not just because of what he may do to us when he plays us, but my mind is like this. If the Premier League are happy for him to come back, and obviously they're not going to stop him, and they're happy for him to play for a Premier League team, he'll get brickbats wherever he goes. He'll get almighty brickbats wherever he goes. It's going to be a nightmare for him. It'll be even worse at United because they're a bigger crowd. There'll be a big percentage of his home crowd at United that don't want him there. There'll be all these factions like the women in football and blah 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 blah, and the Rachel Riley fan club. There'll be all those people against him. There'll be the United women's team against him. There'll be everybody against him. But he's going to get that at whichever club he goes to. You know, it's just going to be worse at Man United. But I'm thinking if there's another club in Great Britain or in England, in the English Premier League, willing to give the young boy another chance, why on earth can't the club of his birth, if you like, his football birth, consider doing the same. I just can't see why we wouldn't. If another Premier League team is happy to go through all of that and take all the brickbats they'll get and think to themselves, well, I mean, I know they're going to be in it for sort of the wrong reasons. They're going to get a world-class player for buttons. They're not going to pay a lot of money for him. They're going to have 6 or 12 months of a lot of grief, a lot of flack, and then it'll die down, it'll be fine, and they'll still have that world-class player. They can even make money on the back of him, because 3 or 4 years down the line, they can sell him to another rival for an even bigger fee and make good money on the back of him. Why would they not do it? At United, it's a little bit different than that, and I get that. United have been bringing him back for different reasons, but I just think he's been at the academy for God knows how many years. He's been brought through the academy and brought on. They spent lots of time and lots of money on the boy, and I'd be gutted for anybody else to reap those rewards. But more importantly, I mean, I think Greenwood's good enough to be one of the best top 5 players in the world. Maybe even top 3. I think he's that good. I mean, Fernandes is a great player. I would suggest he's our best player at United. I think Greenwood's much better than Bruno. Much better, for all I love Bruno. Greenwood might have some problems up here. More of that when I read it to you. But anyway, I'm going to read it without any further ado. Many won't be with me thus far. But if you are, please take it all on board, listen to what I've got to say and see what you think. Before I read this, a part of me wanted him back. And let me just state, I don't want rapists playing for my team. I don't want women beaters playing for my team. I don't want any of that. I've campaigned on this site for women on a number of occasions, and I mean on a number of occasions, how women are treated in other countries. I've campaigned against how women are treated with this transgender thing where males can put on a frock and a bit of lippy and they're in women's changing rooms and so on and so forth. I don't like it, I'm all against it, and I care about women, and I really, really do. But I think this piece will show you there's a bit of 6 of one after a dozen of that is one thing. But also, we did hear what Richard Arnold said at the end of things, along the lines of, we've looked into everything, done our own independent review, God knows it took long enough, and found he's not guilty of any of the charges. That in itself should have carried a bit of weight, but then United did what United do and looked at what the masses said and got frightened. Just a weak board. Arnold has now gone. Maybe Sir Jim, maybe a bit stronger. But let me read you this. I'll read you the headlines first. This was the piece. It was in the Daily Mail in August. Okay? August time by Ian Ladyman. Thought it was a fantastic piece. I'll read you the headlines anyway. It was entitled Endgame, and it says underneath it, Greenwood is aloof and fragile with the mind of a 14-year-old. Now bear that in mind, the mind of a 14-year-old. There is a sadness inside United at a talent wasted and a career in ruins, as we reveal he may never ever play again. Not for United, again. Well, that one's obviously been broken. It says here, another headline there, immature and inarticulate, a bit like myself maybe, young man not equipped to deal with the spotlight or an unpleasant, unforgiving bully. Which is it? It says here, great expectations of a young Greenwood, right, age unknown, with a Champions League trophy and playing for a United team in which he dazzled as a kid. It says underneath here again, United Scouts first watched him in a 16-1 win. He scored all 16 goals. No wonder they signed him. Right, I'll read it to you. It's by Ian Ladyman. It was out about 3 months ago. I thought it was fantastic. If you don't mind, I'm going to lean back. I'm going to read the best as I can. And please, just stay with it. I'll move that ever so slightly and you might get a better view. Not that you want a better view, but right. Sir Alex Ferguson is sitting on a chair, a bit like myself. Blue shirt, grey jacket. The question from Gary Neville seems to surprise him a little. Which young player in world football do you rate the highest? Oh, Mason Greenwood. He's going to be a top player. That video interview was shot just 2 years ago, but Ferguson's seal of approval should have surprised nobody. He had been excited about Greenwood as a young Manchester United forward for years. Back in 2016, 3 years before Greenwood's debut for United as a 17-year-old substitute at Paris Saint-Germain, Ferguson sat at a League Managers Association lunch and told former colleagues, I think we have found one. Now, for those that don't know it, I'm into cutting in here. That is something I seen on a Bobby Charlton documentary a few weeks ago, where Matt Busby is supposed to have turned to Jimmy Murphy and said, I think you've found one here, Jimmy. Exactly the same words as Bobby Charlton. Look how he went on. Right. Others at Old Trafford were similarly enthused. Neville described Greenwood as the best off the scale. Nicky Butt, treble winner and former United Academy head, told Mailsport earlier this year, "I said to Ryan, Giggs, that Mason is the only one near to what he himself was at 17. He was that good. Ridiculous. Left foot, right foot, big, strong, quick, everything purely football. A genius. That Greenwood debut made him the second youngest player to represent United in Europe since Norman Whiteside 37 years earlier. As it happens, those two names were mentioned in the same sentence this week. Norman was the opposite of Mason, said a well-informed source. He was a man when he was 17. Mason was not. He was always a complex lad. Fragile with a childlike brain. 17 going on 14 really. It doesn't surprise me that he struggled. Having said that, nobody could have seen the video coming. Video with Greenwood is everywhere. Videos of his youth team goals, video of his first team goals, 36 in just 83 starts, video of Ferguson, video of Neville, and then the video that would appear to have ended it almost before it all began. I want to, FUCKUUTWAT, says a man's voice on the footage posted online in January 2022. I don't care if you want sex with me. I asked you politely and you wouldn't do it. Greenwood was arrested and charged with attempted rape, actual bodily harm, and controlling and coercive behaviour. The case against him was discontinued a year later, but he has never denied that that was his voice. United have now made it clear that he will not play for them again. There are many who doubt he will ever play again for anybody. I don't think he is equipped to come back from this, said a source with close knowledge of the situation. There are players who will be able to think, I've been cleared, so stuff you. They would just get on and score goals for someone. Mason is not one of those. He's immature. I really think he's finished. After Greenwood and his England teammate Phil Foden broke lockdown rules by inviting two young girls to their room on an England trip in September 2020, both issued statements of contrition. One may have been more sincere than the other. Phil was devastated, revealed an England source. Mason, he couldn't really understand what he'd done wrong, and he said so on the plane home. This is Greenwood summed up in short form. Talented enough to play for England as a teenager, but nowhere near mature enough to understand the responsibility that comes with it. Those present on his one and only England trip said he barely said a word to anybody. A driver used to ferrying high-profile players up and down the country once tried to strike up a conversation with the young lad, with his hood up in the back, only to be told, just drive. Standoffish, aloof, monosyllabic, these are words that are used by several sources this week to describe Greenwood, but one football figure went further. If Paul Gascoigne was playing now with camera phones and everything else, and he was being told he couldn't drink publicly and he couldn't play tennis on a hot afternoon at the World Cup, he would still do it, the source said, because his brain isn't wired. It isn't wired like everybody else's. He doesn't have the bit that tells him to conform or to listen or to stop. There are others like that too, and one is Mason Greenwood. Mason has a childlike mind. He is being judged like an adult, where in reality he is much, much younger. United knew they had a special talent on their hands before Greenwood was even 10 years old. Scouts watching another child at Idle Juniors, a club close to Greenwood's Bradford home, saw him playing by the side of the pitch. When they returned to make him watch his debut, Idle, sorry about this folks, won 16-1, and Greenwood scored every goal. Fast track through the United system at development centres in Halifax and Huddersfield, he eventually arrived at the Cliff in Salford, where he impressed reserve team manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer enough for the Norwegian to say privately, this feels like another Giggsy. The staging posts of Greenwood's early progress are easy to track. A hat-trick for United's youth team against Chelsea is described by the Manchester Evening News as an I was there moment, while Butt recalls an early game at Liverpool. We were getting beat 2-0 and he turned it around on his own. You are looking at him thinking, how can this boy not be the next big thing? Greenwood scored 2 free kicks and set up another goal in a 3-2 comeback win. Butt's excitement was mirrored throughout the club, and he adds, "When Jose Mourinho was manager, he was saying, 'Get him for me.' I had to explain that he was actually still at school." Against all of this, however, there were really identifiable problems. As a young player, Greenwood's put-downs of less talented players could be brutal. He once threatened to leave for Manchester City during the middle of a training game, and after what was believed to have been a row with his girlfriend, he simply didn't turn up for a week. On another occasion, he arrived refusing to take off his hat. Underneath it was a scar believed to have been caused during another lover's tiff with his girlfriend. "None of it was really bad stuff," said a source close to United. "They were just small things about how you train or behave in a particular situation. Not big things, but enough to make you go, 'Wow, I can't believe he has done that.'" United were aware enough of Greenwood's special talent and also of his vulnerable, unpredictable character to afford him close and individual attention. His father, Andrew, an engineer, has always been a key influence, but even he once asked the club for help, admitting his son simply wasn't listening to him. Greenwood's football certainly progressed quickly. He emerged as a key part of Solskjaer's team as United finished second to City in 2021. After scoring a typically well-struck goal in a lockdown win at Brighton the season before, Mail Sport was moved to describe him as Mace the Ace across the back page. Emotionally, however, nothing changed, and by this stage Solskjaer was having to cover for him publicly as stories about poor timekeeping and worse began to emerge. The police felt the need to visit United's training ground on one occasion, for example. Jesse Lingard was asked to look out for him. Greenwood missed games for unexpected reasons. United were even concerned about his sleep patterns. His behaviour wasn't great during lockdown, says one source from the agent world. There were house parties. He was driving his car around late at night, stuff like that. You do get issues with lots of young players, and United care about them. The attitude is, he is one of our own. He's a great player, and whatever we need to do to help him, we will do. Pity they didn't do that at the end. That doesn't go as far as cover-ups. Yes, Ollie may have been excessively protective. Some players thought that, but that was only in hindsight. He cared about Mason. He had issues. There always seemed to be stuff in the background with Mason and Ollie looking out for him. A lot of it was stereotypical player stuff, and only now do you look back and wonder if they were indicative of more deep-seated issues. One lockdown party that reached the public domain occurred just 8 days before that solitary England appearance in Iceland. Neighbour Sean McKay, who lived next door to an Airbnb rented by Greenwood in Salford, told Mail Sport, "One night a group of kids were at the front door shouting, 'You are an SHIT footballer, let us in or we will break your legs.'" In football there have long been two characterizations of Greenwood, and they extend to inside Manchester United as well. One paints a picture of an unpleasant, unforgiving bully. The other of an immature, inarticulate young man, simply not equipped to deal with the stresses and strains of attention, pressure, focus, and indeed wealth that comes with a professional football at the top level. At United, as at all Premier League clubs, academy players take sexual consent training as part of their in-house education. Greenwood was part of that. The club's player welfare programme has in recent times been extended to include help with relationships issues, amongst other things. Nick Cox, the club's current academy manager, believes firmly that the club should not be seen as a sausage factory, given that the vast majority of young players will not make it. All of the club's players at every level were offered practical and emotional support during COVID lockdown. With all this in mind, the one word that kept coming out of United this week was sadness. For both Greenwood, now a young father, his family and of course the girl who made the original complaint. Recently, yet another Greenwood video emerged. This one was of the player suspended from United training in a park with his father and entourage of associates. Greenwood's baby was thought to be present. It's a sad scene. Greenwood is going through the motions literally and metaphorically on the footage. Weak, laboured shots, often ballooning over the crossbar into the long grass behind. A great talent simply trying to cling on. There has been too much bravado from Camp Greenwood over the years for sure. From the day his father had been told to stop shouting so aggressively on the touchline of a youth game, to the impression gained by England manager Gareth Southgate and his staff that Greenwood only wished to be called upon for his country if he was guaranteed a starting spot. Southgate had, as it happens, identified Greenwood as the next Harry Kane some time ago, and was happy to give him and United as long as he felt was necessary before inviting him regularly into the fold at St George's Park. We had issues with his readiness and his maturity, but never his talent, reveals an FA source. The Greenwood family were probably more awkward than some of the others. With Mason and his dad in particular, they thought there would be a lot of attention around him coming into the England squad. It was as if he was going to play and start, and we are not sure it's a good idea. It was that type of attitude. Sorry, I didn't read that very well, I do apologise. Away from all of that though, many at United simply saw a lost boy, and one story sticks in the mind. On United's pre-season tour of Asia 4 summers ago, Greenwood scored a goal against Inter Milan. The next day at a sponsor event in Singapore's Fullerton Bay Hotel, the 17-year-old was asked a question by the compere, but could not seem to open his mouth to answer. In a lift down from the rooftop, he simply asked a member of the United media team if he could be taken somewhere quiet where nobody could see or try to talk to him. We did try and protect him in that way, reveals the source now. He wasn't really ready for any of that. There will be many who have no interest in this side of the story. After all, once you have heard the words of that video in January last year, they can never be unheard. There is another still out there too, one where Greenwood asks a woman whether she still wants Daddy's D-I-C-K. All of this is baggage Greenwood now carries. There has been much talk this week about whether he will ever be offered a route back into football. What is perhaps just as pertinent is to ask whether he is mentally and emotionally equipped to take one. Several sources this week have simply said no to that question. There are those who know him who think his case would have been better going to court. Then the evidence and context that United says led them to believe in his innocence would have been heard by all. Inside Old Trafford, incidentally, they do not say Greenwood was the best since Giggs or Whiteside. No, they say he was the best since Best. Nobody could save George from himself. Nobody could save George from himself either. And now Greenwood, living with his parents in Cheshire, is also adrift, just without the public sympathy. Ferguson was among those who was first aware of Greenwood's burgeoning talents. The best youngster in the world, he thought. Maybe the great Scot could have been the one to see him through. No, I don't think so, says the source. Not even Fergie could have saved him. I think Mason Greenwood was lost from the very start. Now we'll read that, folks. That's 23 minutes in, and I do apologise. For those who've stayed with it, I think it's worth listening to. I hope you've got something out of it. For those that don't believe in Greenwood and believe he shouldn't be given another path, I think it's worth you listening to it. I looked at all that and read all that and thought, that guy is a young guy in an older man's body. He's still a child. They're saying up here he's not been dealt with a full pack, but on a football field he excels, as did Gaza. Look how well he went. Look at George, you mentioned at the end. I forgot the George best bit, but I read it 3 months ago. We couldn't save George. He got lost in drink. He was one of the greatest players we've ever seen, but we got nothing out of him, really. I know he won a European Cup, but for the talent he had, we got nothing out of him. Neither did football. Wait a second, just give me 5 minutes. Neither. Sorry about that. I do apologise. Neither did football. You know, do we really want to lose Mason? We don't, do it. We don't want to lose him. They said he may never play football again and he may never come back. Well, he has come back. He's playing for Getafe and he's doing okay. He's nowhere near 100%. He's probably going to take another 6 months to get to there. But they talk about him playing for another English club. And another English club will have read all of that and taken all of that on board. They'll have got the independent reports from Manchester United. They'll remember Richard Arnold, the Glazers left in charge of running the club, says we've looked into everything. We've done a really deep investigation. That's after the police investigation. And we've come to the conclusion he's innocent of all charges. Yet we've still binned him and sent him down the road. Other teams in England will think, well, maybe he's worth taking a chance on. He could be one of the best players in the world. I believe he will be. He's that good. You know, he's defying logic. He's come back and he's doing reasonably well. Maybe getting away from the goldfish bowl of English football and the Britbats has helped him. He had a few dodgy moments in a couple of away games. That's now eased up in Spain. If he comes back here, as I say, he's going to have 6 to 12 months of abuse. He'll probably get even more if he came back to United. But if they can help him and helps what's needed and get him through it, we could have one of the world's great players again. When you read all that, I said months ago, I've done about 5-6 pieces on Greenwood. There's been nobody on YouTube that I see or on the radio or on TV that sticks their hand up for Mason Greenwood and says we want him back. I'm nobody special. Even my mates don't think we should get him back. I'm the only one I've seen on air that's pushed for him back over 5 or 6 messages. I still do now. Goldbridge, I think he does a lot on here. He doesn't want him back. Is it Goldstein on TalkSport? He doesn't want him back. Nobody wants him back. But I think of them nobodies, many haven't read that piece. And I think when you read that piece, it's really, really powerful. It tells you about the mind of Mason. It tells you the stories about all the fights he's had with his girlfriend when he's come in with big cuts on his head that he's hidden and whatever. I said something in here weeks ago and felt a bit uncomfortable saying it. Although I'm an adult, you get these people now, these young people, they play, for want of a better word, sex games. That, you know, that I don't just mean the dressing up things. I mean, some girls get something out of being beaten up, being strangled, being this, being that, being the other. We don't know if they've done things together and things have gotten out of hand. We really, really don't. Maybe his girlfriend, I always thought there was an element of coercive behaviour with herself, with the taping and whatever else. You can lead somebody into saying what you want them to say when you're taping them and they don't know they're being taped. And I thought there was an ulterior motive there. I may well be wrong. I possibly am wrong, but that said, isn't it weird that she's done that and initially it was going to court and all of a sudden, not only has she dropped everything, but she's having a baby with the fella and she's marrying the fella. Some might say if she can have a baby with him and marry him and she can forgive him, can football not? Can his club not? They spent all that money, all that time on him, all them efforts. Can they not forgive him? There's United fans that don't want him back. There's women's groups that don't want him back. There's women's football teams that don't want him back. There's plenty that don't want him back. But can we not give people a second chance? Do people not deserve a second chance? There's been plenty of football players over the years, 20, 30, 40 years, that have committed misdemeanours, some even greater than that. But they've been given other chances. Greenwood does not. After his club decided to give him a second chance, they caved to the weight of pressure that was upon them and thought, no, that's it, and he's gone. So Jim, I hope you read that. It's never going to get to you, this is what I've done. But I hope you or your people or somebody reads that. I hope you or your people look into that and see how many truths are in there from Ian Ladyman. I hope you and your people, one of your generals, speaks to Greenwood, speaks to his dad, speak to somebody about him. Before you 100% rubber stamp that thing that he never comes back to our great club. Have a word with the guy himself. Form an opinion yourself. Let your own people form an opinion. If you bring him back, you're going to get brickbats like everybody else is going to, like Greenwood's going to. But if he can go through it, surely you can. If you believe that everything that's been written about him thus far is wrong and he's not the devil incarnate as people would make us believe, if you look at what he can do for your club, if you look at what he's worth to your club, if you look at how great he can be in football and you look at what he could do for somebody else rather than yourselves, if you take everything into consideration, and I mean everything, surely you can at least consider forming a different opinion. I'm not saying you will form a different opinion, but at least consider it. I always wanted him back, but at the other end of me I'm thinking, well, how can we have him back if he beats women up and looks at raping them and he's derogatory to them in the way he wasn't? Because I've heard the tapes. I don't want him back. He was the last player in the world I wanted any of that to happen to, because I think he's our best player. He was my favourite player, and I hear all that and I feel so bad and I think, oh no, he's gone, we've lost him, he's gone. He's gone. But then when you read these kind of things, and United did this forensic dig that took 5 months, was it? And they exonerate him of all charges, you think, wait a minute, and you read things like that, and there's not been many things like that have been on Greenwood's side, and you realise the mind of the boy, and let's face it, he's still a boy anyway, but he's a younger boy here from what you read there. At the end of the day, he only becomes a man on a football field. Off the football field, he certainly isn't a man. You've got to look at giving him another chance. You've got to at least consider it, Sir Jim. You've got to consider it. I honestly believe that. It's took 30 minutes, this. I'm going to wrap it up, I really am. But I don't know. I'm not for women beaters, I'm not. I'm not for rapists. I'm all for women and, I'm having a fair crack of the whip. I've not got women down as second-class citizens that can be walked on and abused by men. It's happening in so many places in the world now. I'm not for that at all. But I think there's definitely, in a couple of instances here, a bit of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And with himself, with his girlfriend who's now going to become his wife. And I think if she's going to be given a chance in the Premier League, I want it to be at my club, at Manchester United. I don't want it to be anywhere else. It will kill me to see him playing for anybody else. And it's not just the goals he might score against us. It's nothing to do with that. I just want to marvel at his greatness playing for my team rather than playing for anybody, whoever it may be. And my worry isn't in playing for a City or a Liverpool or the teams that win more trophies. I don't want him playing for anybody. If he went to Luton and they stayed in the Premier League next year, I'd be gutted. If he went to anywhere that's in Premier League next year, I'd be gutted. I don't want to see him on an English field and it'd be for anyone other than ourselves. I really don't. And I do think even if Mason's got some issues up here, I think we'd see a Greenwood that would come back, his timekeeping and all these things would improve. Because even if he's got the mind of a child, he knows enough now to know he's just got to get his head down, work hard and become another person. And I think he would do, or could do, and more than likely would do. We'd get a much better version of Mason Greenwood. Not so much on the field, but off the field. And that in itself would lead to a better version on the field. If you've stayed with it thus far, I'll be absolutely amazed. Anybody that's watched all of this, comment, well, anyone that's watched any of it, well, comment down below, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever else. But if you've watched it till the end, please put till the end. Start your comment with till the end, and then let me know your thoughts. I'd love to know. I hope a few people get to watch it. I really, really do. Oh, by the way, has anybody had an opinion on the Greenwood saga? And now has it say they were for him, and even more so now, or against him, and they now can see another side to the story? I'd love it if there's somebody there that didn't want him back in England at all, or at United at all, but after hearing that, think to themselves, wait a minute, maybe we have been a bit too hasty here, maybe there's things about the thing that we knew nothing about, maybe there's a Mason Greenwood we knew nothing about, we didn't know the state of his mind and how he is and what kind of personality he is. Them things about Best were really pertinent, and the Paul Gascoigne bit, if you think of those, you're talking 2 different players there, and anyway, those at United think it's the best since Best, never mind Giggsy and all the rest, the best since Best. So they think he's better than Giggsy and Scholes and Van Nistelrooy and Rooney and Cole. Did they mean Eric as well? Maybe they did. The best since Best. That puts him in the top 3. Him, Best and Duncan. Top 3 ever.